Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I hope you are staying inside and staying safe as much as possible, and you're doing better than you were yesterday, and that you still remember the concept of yesterday. My guest on the show today is comedian Carmen Lagala. Carmen, I met several years ago at the Creek in the Cave. She has appeared on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert as a comedian and had a great set on that show. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about kind of some of the practical stuff when it comes to being a comic, especially in our current climate with COVID-19 effectively ending live stand-up comedy as we know it. And we're going to kind of get into some relevant stuff. This is a fun conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy this as well. As I'm sure you may guess, I don't have a ton to add, too much to add, because every day is kind of like the same. Not quite like the movie Groundhog Day, but we're getting close. I haven't had to run from the police yet, like in one version of that guy's day. So I'm still hanging in, is ultimately what I'm going to say. So, but before we get to my chat with Carmen Lagala, I want to let you guys know that I want to hear from you. If you listen to this show and enjoy it, you can tweet to me at Comic Will Carey. I'm also on Instagram, WillCarey23, and I'd love to hear from you guys. And if I hear from some of you, I'd love to read some of your responses on the show here. So if you're out there, I'd love to hear from you, and I hope you guys are doing well. And let's get right into it. Let's go to my chat with comedian Carmen Lagala. So I'm curious. Where did you grow up, Carmen?
Montpelier, Vermont,
And
where we all grew up.
oh yeah. And my idea of Vermont is that it's woodsy and
Mhm.
not terribly diverse. I'm curious what like the vibe in Montpelier is. Is that a small town or a city?
Small town, extremely white. I think there are 8,000 people in Montpelier, something around there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lots of woods. I went home and did a show. Last time I was home when I did a show, the next day I ran into somebody in the woods who said, "Great show last night," and that was the only person I saw in the woods that day. So it's real small and a lot of good places to walk. Very lovely.
Mm-hmm. It's that kind of place where you just kind of like walk through the woods and run into people.
Yes, you run into the only other person in town.
Ah, good to hear. That makes sense to me. I'm from a really small part, so like rural part of Maryland, and for the longest time, I thought I just was in a really small town, and I come to find out that where I'm from isn't even technically big enough to be a town. It's a a place, is what it's designated as.
Really? They
Yeah.
don't even. Is it part of a town?
No, it's officially called a census designated place, is what I learned recently. Like population, I think the population at the last census was in the triple digits.
Okay, to 100.
Oh, I'm sorry. What
Wait,
was
what do
that?
you put on the address? What
Oh,
do you put on the address?
well, I had an address. It just you would never. I had an address, but we weren't on like the public water supply. We had well water, or our garbage was never picked up. You would have to go and take your garbage into the dump. So I was like what I think I was like the try. I was basically, I think, growing up in the trial version of living off grid.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you lived in a town. I think you lived in the past, is what it sounds like. Like,
It's essentially
that
my
is,
yeah. Essentially, like I also learned that my house is basically a summer cottage that's not supposed to be lived in year round. But fun things you learn from your folks in your 30s. So so growing up in so
like
growing up in
almost escape.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mhm.
growing up in Vermont, like, what was your home life like?
It was good. Man, I don't know, kind of boring. Um, I longed for adventure, spent a lot of time in the forest behind my house, inventing other realities. Played a lot of sports. I don't know. It was peaceful.
Creating realities in your backyard. I did a lot of that as well. I did a lot of that as well. So
Yeah.
longing for adventure
Hmm.
at an
I
early.
just wanted desperately to move anywhere else. Yeah.
Gotcha. So early on, you knew that you wanted to. This wasn't the end all be all that you wanted to your life to be was Vermont.
Oh yeah, I left like the second I turned 18, basically.
Oh yeah.
I was gone.
And did you have
Yep.
any siblings?
Yes, older sibling. She's there with her four kids.
Mm-hmm.
So a bit of a different route.
Yeah, a lot of friends from where I grew up have that route as well. There's the people who left, and then there's the couple people that stayed, and that's pretty much the mo. I learn a lot of what they're like as people from Facebook nowadays, and oh yikes.
Uh, I think I don't know how this sounds like maybe Maryland is not, but Vermont is very aggressively liberal, which I love. And we still have hillbillies though. So anytime I check up on some friends who haven't left, they're just like a redneck, but like super liberal. And it's very refreshing. I like it a lot. You know, they're just like ignorant, but also like really uh, I don't know, very liberal. I don't know. There's no fun way to say it.
No, I'm
Comedy.
kind of imagining like thick accents with very like progressive thoughts, but kind of not the way
Yes.
that I imagine like progressive Twitter would want it phrased, but like the intent is there.
Yes.
Kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, I that makes sense to me. Maryland, at least where I'm from, is is very conservative. The county I grew up in, but then if you go up towards Baltimore, it gets a little bit more like uh, liberal cosmopolitan in parts, and then if you head out west, it gets pretty rural and red again. Um, yeah, where
I
I'm
guess
from.
this is
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry about that delay. I'm getting used to like just saying the thing and then waiting for the response. So I'm sorry about that.
no, same. I'm like, I don't know when to cut in.
So you're an outdoorsy kid growing, and then you're into sports. So far, this is not fitting my usual narrative of people that I see get into comedy. So you leave when you're 18, and and where did you go? What happens after you leave Vermont when you're 18?
Let's see. I took a gap year. I went to Gloucester, Massachusetts to live with a friend of mine who became a Coast Guard. I lived with her over the summer. And no, wait, that was after sorry, I did a volunteer program. So I worked in a restaurant and then had enough money to go do this. Just you volunteered on like the beach in Costa Rica, basically. It was fucking awesome. Um, so I did that for 3.5 months, came back, worked in Massachusetts, and then went to college for four 4 years. Did I travel during college? No. And then because I was an athlete in college, so I couldn't go anywhere. And then went to Namibia the year after I got out of college for a year. Uh, where else did I go? I went to Trinidad, Tobago, and it's the same thing. Basically, Peru, um, places like that. I don't know, other places here and there.
And what was your sport? What did you play?
Track and field.
I can kind of see that. I'm not exactly sure why. It's just I guess when I look at you, I think she probably looks like she can run, whereas most people who would look at me be like, he probably knows he probably knows where the best spots to eat in whatever city I'm going to are. Um, so you got out of Vermont. Where like I need to see the world. That's cool.
Yes. Yeah.
And Namibia, is that in Africa?
Yeah, sub-Saharan. So it's above sorry, north, south, east, west. I don't know which one's east and which one's west until I do it with my hands.
Hmm.
Um, west, southwest, West Africa. So a little just above South Africa, but to the on the west coast side.
Oh, awesome! And how is that? Africa, I still haven't been to. I've been to a lot of places, but I still haven't gotten to Africa yet.
hmm Very expensive. I wish I could go back. It was hard. Internet was not the same then as it is now. This was over 10 years ago. It was like 11 years ago. So not only was international internet, it was just like pretty hard to set up, but it was not it was there, but it wasn't it was like hard to come by.
Hmm.
So uh, it was fine. I don't know. I don't have like, oh, it was so profound. It changed my whole outlook on the world. Like I kind of already a lot of people experience that and I'm like, well then you weren't reading before. Like pick up a Nat Geo or I don't know. Like no, like I kind of knew what it was going to be. It was it was fine. It was a little depressing because it was just um areas that are suffering more than I'm used to and you kind of have a front row seat to it. But it's fine. It's just like a life. You just kind of do your thing. It's kind of the same everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know.
D-
People would
did
be, I don't know. So I think some people would be like, it's so different, but it's like, is it? I don't know. What's different? You're still eating and bathing and hanging out.
Essentially, yeah. There's a lot of similarities in places you go. I think when people talk about like, oh, travel opens the mind, a lot of times what they're not mentioning, I think, are uh, all of those things that are kind of the same no matter what. And
Yeah.
fingers crossed that makes people like mature as people or global citizens is my favorite phrase when it comes to that. Did you go anywhere that
Yeah. Yeah.
did you go anywhere that did like blow your mind?
Machu Picchu. Got in there before that closed down forever. Really glad I did. That was the most magical place I've ever been. And I did the hike up Huayna Picchu, which is the peak next to it. It gives you the best view
Hmm.
of Machu Picchu. They only let in the first, I think, 300 or maybe even 100 people. So you have to get there really early. I twisted my ankle like beyond. It was damaged for a couple of years afterwards. I twisted it so badly on the cobble streets on the way to get on the bus, and I had to fake that I was fine to get in because they
Hmm.
don't let anyone in if you're in top physical shape. So I just kind of hopped up a mountain with one really shitty ankle, and it was the best thing I've ever done. It was so cool.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's closed now. Like you can't Machu Picchu's closed permanently. Did I miss something?
It's about to close permanently. I think they were maybe there's too much damage being done to it or something. I'm not really sure what the full story is, but yeah, they're shutting it down for good.
Oh wow, I didn't.
So I would recommend it, but I can't because it's done. It's gone.
Wow, that's something. But that makes sense. I a couple of years I was in Thailand with my now fiance Chelsea, and um that that there was this kind of like hidden beach that you can kind of access in the PP Islands that is
Mm.
famous for like where they filmed the movie The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio, but apparently they did like a massive amount of damage while they were shooting that movie, and tourism has continued to make it worse. So yeah, it's shut off now as well. I think for the foreseeable future.
That sucks. That's so terrible. Oh God. Thanks, Leo.
Yeah, it doesn't make me feel good that like all of these like great beautiful places, like as soon as humans get in there, we just ruin everything.
Oh yeah, we ruin everything immediately.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
kind of a bummer.
yeah. I feel like nature's really been bouncing back since coronavirus. It's kind of nice to see. You're just like, all right, that's nice to break. Even like the pandas are mating in the zoos because finally, like assholes aren't in there staring at them.
Right, right. Yeah, it's not a problem of it's like who likes to be watched? Pandas aren't exhibitionists, I suppose. Um, I
Yeah.
also wanted to ask you this. Have you noticed? I don't know if you've been outside recently, but I feel like the air in New York is drastically cleaner.
Um, I want to say that's true. I have not noticed a difference personally. It should be true. It's certainly true in other places where they're taking pictures and they can actually see the mountains now. But I think I don't know. I think the air is still so shitty here. But I don't know. I've been going for runs every other day, but I have nothing to compare it to because I didn't run before, so I have no basis of comparison.
Right. I just think because traffic is down so much. I've also seen like satellite images over major industrial cities in China that production has ceased, and the
Mhm.
pollution is like drastic. Like I've heard a couple of people say we need something drastic to stop climate change, and I guess coronavirus is what is something drastic.
Absolutely. So some silver linings. You can't complain with that.
Oh, oh yeah. I mean, I'm trying to make the best of what I've got here. I mean, I've done a podcast like every weekday since this has started, pretty much, so that I don't forget how to talk to humans. Because I go like my entire day. All I'm still working, but all of my work is 95% of it is on over email.
Oh, ugh, that's no fun.
Yeah, so I don't have to talk to people all day, which honestly, and I'm fine with, because I had tons of call center customer service jobs when I first moved to New York, and I would just feel like
Mhm.
drained and depressed and beaten down at the end of every single day,
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah,
catching
yeah.
this onslaught of anger constantly. Like I don't feed off of
I was
being
about to say,
around
were people just
people.
like mad and mean? Yeah.
Oh, constantly,
I
and
don't, I don't know. Everyone all the time.
I would say like if I took 10 calls, 8 of them would end in me like feeling really sad about about the experience afterwards,
Sucks.
because they just
That's,
didn't know what they
yeah.
were doing. The people I
It's
was
so
working for.
frustrating. I know, yeah. People who call in are so frustrating because it's like I think those people just need to see the person that they're calling as a person who is on their side against another evil. It's like, they always think that like you are the CEO of this company, and it's like no, this person fucking hates their boss. Like do whatever you can to get that person promoted so that they can. I don't know. I'm so nice to customer service. I'm like overly nice to customer service people or not customer service. What is that called? I don't know. Call center, tech support, any of that.
Hmm.
Just because it's like God, they probably get such an onslaught of, and then like, no, this person's on my team. We gotta
Yeah.
let's eat their boss. I want to eat their boss with them. You know?
Exactly, because and that will weigh on you. I think a big part of the reason I find, and maybe it's also because of how I grew up, I think a big part of the reason I find like uh I'm finding some relaxation in all of this indoor time is because that's kind of how I was raised.
Hmm. Hmm. I'm also finding that too. There have been articles about it too, where people are experiencing less depression and anxiety, and again, that's definitely the case for me. Uh, I don't know, because there's just it's like everybody. I don't know. They had the psychology behind it. I don't remember what it was, but I had already read something that had said like, "Hey, big, terrible, like people in Syria are experiencing less depression and anxiety," which it's like, well, yeah, it's just like you're too distracted from that. You're like trying to survive or or something. Mm.
Yeah, I have no idea like about world events at all at present because I like did the war get put on hold because of this? Like I haven't heard hardly any election news and I'm so thankful because it was really bumming me
Yeah,
out all the time.
yeah, it is too much. It's so boring too. I
Uh,
just, oh my God, I can't believe I'm gonna have to vote for fucking Biden. He's such a dumbass. But, like, how is Bert not overwhelmingly who everybody wants? It makes no sense.
yeah, I agree with you. I sometimes feel like and this is going to be a really jarring transition, but it's I really do think this. I wonder if because Bernie to me is like the politician equivalent of like the super incredibly funny stand-up comedian that crushes every time you see them, but for some reason
Uh-huh.
they never get that far in the industry.
That is a perfect comparison. I'm so glad we were able to tie it back to our lives. Oh, that is excellent.
Yeah, well
He's a
that
real Sam Evans candidate.
and then Biden is like the person who's obviously like they work, but it's shocking.
Mhm.
You don't hear the enthusiasm, but then suddenly they're really popular, and like I don't see it. I'm not. This math isn't adding up.
Yep. And I have names for that list too, but I am not going to say them.
uh, yeah, I don't do that. Although I do think I would make a ton of money doing a podcast on Patreon where I just shit talk people all day. But that's
Oh my God.
yeah, it's not but it's not what I'm trying to put out in the universe. So as part of my incredible
No, same.
transition,
It's such a bummer.
I know.
Sometimes I just wish I was a mean person, like a really mean, publicly mean person.
I mean, it does kind of that level of not giving a fuck does seem like it's freeing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I wonder, if they're maybe suffering in turn. I'm sure, but at the same time, you're like, oh, that must be nice just to say all the horrible things in your stupid head. I don't know.
Yeah, just kind of excise all of your demons. So how do you
Hmm.
get to so from Machu Picchu? How do you get to New York City?
Let's see. Came back from that. I started doing comedy actually right. I was in Peru. I was like a year in, maybe less than a year into comedy when I went to Peru. Came back with some really, really bad jokes about my
Mm-hmm.
trip. Um, let's see. And then I ran a comedy club in Vermont, in Burlington. A club is such a strong word, but like then I came to New York and I was like, no, it was a club. It's like it was a very like Greenwich kind of a place, like kind of just like a shithole.
Uh
It's
huh.
okay, they don't book me anymore. Very low capacity, pretty bad comedy. I think we thought it was great because we were just like, yeah, this is all we've ever seen, but it was like pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that went under in a year and a half. And then I stayed for a little bit, did everything. I did music open mics. I ran like 3 to 5 shows a month. And then I went back and forth between New York and Vermont just to see what it was like. And pulled the trigger, broke up with my boyfriend, moved out of our condo. And here I am, baby. It's been 5 years, over 5 years.
Oh, that's awesome. And what did you learn
Mhm.
running a what did you learn running a club that because I feel like lots of comics have their side of the experience, and then there's the club manager side. I'm curious what
Yes.
that was like for you.
It fucking sucks. It's the worst thing ever. I feel so bad for everybody who runs any business at all. There's so much. I mean, I guess other businesses are run like legitimately and have people doing different tasks. I ran the whole thing. So I did everything from like making people coffee to and like nachos, performing, and the calendar, all of the bullshit. I had to go to city hall all the time. You have to like file paperwork for everything. Everything you do, they want it, and then they want to deny and they want to take forever to give you your licenses. There's just so much red tape. Comics are awful to deal with. Not always. That's not true. I had so many good experiences, but then there's some real knobs in comedy, and every now and again they cross paths.
Totally.
Yeah.
And
So
did you have to deal with like everyone like constantly trying to get in your good graces for stage time or to get booked, that kind of shit?
yes, but luckily it was Vermont, and we were like desperate. Anybody who contacted us got a spot. We were so happy that anyone would want to come there. Um, our biggest thing that ever happened was somebody we definitely didn't book because he was getting money. He was getting paid to do a show at UVM at the college. Uh, so Hannibal Buress, one of the friends and comedians who performed there, got him to come down and do our open mic. 'Cause our open mic was the best night of the week. It was always packed. We broke fire code for it, so it'd be like 50, 60 people just crammed person to person in this room, and they fucking loved the open mic. They were so hot. It was a real audience. And yeah, he came down and we were just like, yeah, do whatever you want. So we got up and did like 20 or 30 minutes. It was great.
That's awesome. Hannibal's one of my favorites. I don't know if he's like toured recently. Like the last thing I've heard of him is that he's like a landlord now because he owns a building in Chicago. And
Oh my God.
but when my first couple years in New York, I went to the taping for his I think it was his first special, maybe his second album, Animal Furnace, and just had like the best time.
Yes, yes, yes. That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't seen or heard from him in a while. The last time I saw him perform, he was having a meltdown that made me really uncomfortable at Knitting Factory about 4 years ago. Oh, maybe five. It was the most depressing. He does that every now and again. Some comics do. Him and Gary Goldman, for sure, are two people who are notable to have those kinds of meltdowns on stage where instead of being funny, they just something kicks in and they have to be really dark and depressed, and they don't get off stage. They'll just ride it out. So for like 20 minutes, they're like, this is the worst business I've ever been in. I want to kill myself. And they'll just keep going. Which I totally get as an instinct. So I'm not like, how dare they? Like, I don't give a shit. But it was that's the last time I saw him. So I don't think he was ever, in comedy. I don't know if that was causing him to be in a bad place or if everything was causing him to be in a bad place. But yeah, when he came by the club, he was at like the peak of his career. So
Yeah.
that's cool. I hope he's okay.
I hope so too. That's something I've started to realize. Like every every comic, no matter how well it looks like they're doing, so like 95% of the time, it's like all like writing like razor thin margins of like good to like everything falling apart.
Yes.
And I kind of lived my life like that for a while until I realized that maybe I could be more productive if I had a slightly stronger foundation, be it like outside of being on stage. But so okay,
That
so
sounds great.
it works for me. I mean I don't know what it's doing for my career, but we'll see. Okay, so you get to New York, and this is probably where I run into you because I remember seeing you at the Creek because I think you were a bartender there for a little while. Yes.
I was, yes.
That's when I started running into you, and I'm
Mhm.
I'm I'm curious because you're in that kind. You're kind of now in this like at least before COVID-19. I felt like you were kind of there were a lot of there was a lot of stuff going on. You were on the road pretty consistently. I'm curious about that transition from when you're just doing those like open mics, those late night open mics that are just like this wall of indifference that I've talked about a lot before. How do you get what happens to get from that cycle to getting on Colbert, which your Colbert set was wonderful. I really enjoyed it, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. Gosh, it was, yeah, it's like, whew, a long road. It was like, it's been almost 10 years now. Has it been over 10? I don't know. That's such a good question. I don't know. I remember when I first moved here, I got one show a month for a while, and that felt great. I was like, I'm killing it. And then, slowly I got up to like once a week, and I was like, I am really hitting my stride. This is incredible. I think it was, I mean, I remember, I don't know what the mics are like much now because I don't go more than a couple times a month. It seems like it's a whole new community, but the community was so strong back then, especially when you were in the thick of it and you were at everything. So I think building from there and just getting, I mean, I was everywhere. The way I got on some of the shows that I really wanted to get on was just by hanging out like too much until they were just like, I guess we have to put her up. Uh, and I love the hang. I know some people don't like it, and that's fine. And you don't have to participate in it. It definitely, it just helps so much to be everywhere all the time, though. Um, so it's really slow. It's like the slowest progression. You just slowly build more shows over time. You build those relationships over time. The way I got Colbert, I can trace it back to the day I moved here, basically. And I'm just like, oh, if every, you just see all the dominoes fall, and you're like, man, if just one of those dominoes hadn't been there, I wouldn't be here. This was, well, back when I was in Vermont, this is such a long, boring story now that I get that same friend who got Hannibal to come down, Phil Davidson. He got Ben Kronberg to come down. So I knew Ben. Ben, great, the best. He came to Vermont, so I had a relationship with him. And then when I moved to New York, he invited me to Cobra Club, where he ran that Friday show, Live from Outer Space.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, it was like Ben and some other guys. And then got to know Eric Bergstrom really well. So I started, and that's near my house. So I hung out there a lot. Built a really good relationship with the show to the point where they put me up a lot. Like I would just be there, and they'd be like, "Hey, can you warm up the show?" So I would do that. And that when Eric got Colbert, he had the booker Jessica was there to watch him, and she just happened to be in the room when I went up and warmed up the show. And so we started. I didn't really think. I mean, I was thrilled, but I didn't think to myself like, "Oh, this is it." I was like, "This is probably not going to go anywhere." And then it just did over the course of 8 months. It finally got somewhere. So it was really weird, long story. I'm out of breath, very out of shape.
That's going to be most of us. So, and because I've talked to a few people who have done late nights, so that's 8 months of like sending them tapes over and over again and like rearranging the order of jokes and the phrasing of each joke. I'm curious, is there any kind of unusual change that you remember having to make when you were putting that set together?
I remember, I think I was too needy for a while. I wanted so much feedback all the time on every single line and every single word. And they were like, yeah, it's fine. At some point, they were just like, it's fine, and stopped replying to my email. Like, I even emailed and I was like, can I say vulva on TV? And I just didn't get a response. So I just said it, and they aired it. So that's, that's great. And yeah, I forgot the question. Something about notes.
Nope, that was that pretty much answered. I was asking if there are any like weird changes that they requested.
Oh, that they requested. I changed the jokes so much. I remember they took out something, and I agreed. Also, there's a joke that I did at the taping that they took out, but my set was like so long. I remember being like, "Hey, this is running 8 minutes," and I know that doesn't. She was just like, "It's fine, just don't worry about it. We'll figure it out." And then they cut it down, but it's still like 6.5 or 7 minutes long. I mean, they let them do longer sets, but that seems like a lot. I would be more comfortable with like 4.5. I feel like for a TV set, it shouldn't be more than 5, maybe 5.5.
Mm-hmm.
If it's somebody famous, that's just such a long time. I don't know.
Well, especially in the context of like a variety show with like sketches and interviews, and sometimes, especially if you're following like the political guest who has like a super profound thing about whatever Donald Trump said that particular day, tough act
Yeah.
to follow. Reminds me of like I hear so many. I've heard so many stories about like like having like getting booked for like some kind of benefit, and then you're right before the like really sad I almost died story.
Oh my God, those are the worst. Worst. Or yeah, oh my God, the benefits for like a dead kid, and you're like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Oh man, gotta stop doing comedy at sad things. It never works. It never works.
I know. I'm honestly kind of surprised that that benefit comedy shows like have still held on as like an idea, because if
Hmm.
you get a bunch of if you book a bunch of people that delight in like the saying the thing that's you're not supposed to say, you're just going to get an entire evening of people talking about the one thing you probably don't want them talking about.
Yep.
um
Yeah.
okay, so you do Colbert, and I'm curious cuz I'm mature, I understand enough now, though there was definitely a time when every comic I saw on TV when I was younger, I'd be like, "Oh, they must be a millionaire." Like there was definitely that idea, but like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're a comic on TV? Well, everything must be great. You must never
Mm,
have to
mm, mm.
you can probably do any bar show in any major city now." Um so I'm curious, after Colbert hits, is there a how noticeable is the effect on your career at that point?
uh, it didn't do much or anything, but it's so sad. It's all smoke and mirrors. It felt like it lended some credibility so that people did reach out more for me to travel to like Philadelphia to do 30 minutes for $100. And then the bus ticket's like $50. So it got me stuff, but not, I don't know. I'm like, oh, I could have done this before, but it's they needed something to get people's attention, which is very feels I don't know. I don't love it. It was kind of incremental. It certainly didn't hurt. I don't think I got much out of it though. I think people did used to get a lot out of it in the past, but it just I don't know. It stopped helping. It certainly I definitely don't get on all the shows I want to in other cities. I do get on a lot of them, but there are absolutely still bar shows that are harder to get on than late night TV, for sure.
Which is so bizarre to me, and that I think that plays into uh, because I'm not on those shows either. I feel like that plays into some people's exercising of some sort of control issue, but that's just me.
Yeah, probably. I
Uh,
don't know. It's yeah, but it is also yeah. People will like. There's so many comics. I watch so much comedy, and will still be people who are like, "Hey, can I do your thing? I've been on these six shows," and then I'm just like, "Oh my God, I have no idea who you are, and you've been on Conan 7 times. Like how do I not know who the fuck you are? Nobody knows who anybody is, even if they're huge fans of comedy. It's very niche or something. I don't know. Population's doubled since 1973. Maybe that's it. I have no idea.
Poss- Possibly. I remember thinking about like interesting comedian meltdowns. I remember when I was a doorman at the Laughing Devil, Rich Voss was headlining a weekend, and
Yeah.
I can't remember if this was the show that a heckler almost punched me in the face or not, but um, I remember him kind of like sitting on a stool, and him just going, "I sold 1,000 tickets last weekend in Indianapolis. God damn it, this business makes no sense."
Uh-huh. And he's right. I
Yeah,
love like an old road dog too, where they're like, I used to did it, did it. And you're like, oh my God. And then, and then you just keep doing stand up, even though you're like, well, there it is. That is what this is. That is the future. It's not going to be pretty, and then you can be super rich and happy, and then it can be taken away from you immediately.
yeah, that's I think what scared me of like trying to focus on being a road dog stand-up comic. What scared me away from that is maybe hearing a couple too many John Fox stories on Marin. Like I don't know if you've heard that name before or not.
I haven't, and that makes me sad. Like, there are actually really funny. There's so many funny road dogs that I've just never heard of because they're not. I don't know if they're not getting exposure. They certainly sell well. They have fans.
Yeah,
Some
that's
of
what's
them do, not all.
yeah, that's what's so bizarre to me as well. Because you think if anyone does something at that well at that level for that long, sure, certainly more people would have heard of them. It's very bizarre to me.
Right.
But John Fox, I think there's some clips of him on YouTube, but he's like a legendary. He's like a legendary like road comic. There are tons of John Fox stories. Like Jeff Foxworthy opened for him, and he was one of those guys.
Good.
And I remember hearing this on WTF. Him telling some John Fox story about him starting a conversation, be like, "Well, it's like when you're back at the condo and you got a hairbrush up your ass, and." And of course, Marin's like, "No, I don't think I do know, John." Um, and then I saw the future I saw the future where it's like, well, if you stay out there long enough, eventually you're gonna put a hairbrush up your ass.
Oh, haven't we all though? I get what he means.
Right. You have enough time alone in the room before the show with your own thoughts, and you just start to be like, oh, I wonder if the phrase
Yeah, I
that
still want to be a
inspires.
road dog. I don't know.
I mean, I want to. I guess what I started my thinking started changing into is like I wanna I want to travel and do stand up, but I guess I want to try to get to a point where I can like play like 100 to 200 people in a city, and then go and do
Mhm.
that in a couple of different cities.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
seems
that'd be great.
more. It seems more. Uh, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. It feels more uh, stable, or like less gypsy like, or like vagabond like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you have like your people. Who's that? Bob Marley has a career, I would think kind of like that, where he has really diehard fans in New England. So he tours New England. He doesn't really go anywhere else, but he has built up a really good following in a lot of specific places, mostly Maine. Like he can do a great comic too. He can do like hours just on the state of Maine, and Maine loves it. They love him, and he just makes his whole career on that. And it's like that sounds that's not bad. He can go places, and people uh, aren't going to mob him, but he's famous in his wheelhouse.
Totally.
Good life.
Or yeah, or like your Eddie F's, or not Ari Shafir, the other guy from Flight of the Concords, like that are really huge in like Australia or like some other foreign country.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That would be pretty cool. I thought
That'd be
recently
great.
it could be cool to become like the first like big in Japan stand up comic.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if anyone's done
that'd be
that
great.
yet.
For expats, or
Well, for whoever. For I've tried to
you can
do
learn a new language.
um yeah, I've told myself I'm going to try to learn more Japanese during the quarantine. But what I thought, and this was my brilliant idea, a couple years ago, I tried to do a set in Turkish that only worked for a few sentences. But my
I did
plan
that in
was,
Spanish.
oh yeah,
Yeah, same experience where I'm just like, got it, and then you're like, nope, something went wrong in translation with everything except for like two of these.
right. So my thought was for the next time I do that, because you know how at like certain theaters they'll have a sign language interpreter off to the side.
Hmm.
So I get you get you travel somewhere, you get a local comic that is bilingual, or can translate your act in real time on stage with you, and you guys and you essentially form a bilingual comedy team for a show. I think I would want to
Hmm.
try doing that.
Oh, that'd be cool. Maybe the audience could have like those headphones that you have where you can switch between two different musical numbers that are happening, and they can tune in either to English or Japanese, and you guys can do it side by side on stage. There'd be like a delay for the translation, but
Yeah, exactly. But I would make some adjustments for the delay. But I think that could be an interesting or disastrous experiment, which might make it funnier.
for sure.
And were you doing a lot of road before quarantine happened? Before COVID happened?
I was doing almost the perfect amount, I would say. I wanted like a few more gigs, but I like to go out not every weekend. Every other weekend is really like the sweet spot. Most I feature for Hari Kondo Bolu. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
out doing that like in chunks. I'll be doing that for like maybe a couple months of weekends straight, and then I'll do my own stuff for a few months. Mostly more local stuff, Connecticut, places I can kind of get to easier. But I had some stuff on the books, Milwaukee. I think I'm gonna have to cancel it because it's the first weekend in May,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't see things
Getting
opening up by
better.
then. I didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it either. That's why my fiance and I pushed our wedding back a year, just because and everything we reprinted
God.
has no dates on it, just in the event things go really squirrely. Um,
Right.
uh, this is something else I also I like asking because I find it inspiring for myself personally. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, Carmen. This has been quite a joy.
Oh my God. No, thank you for inviting me on. So, I mean, I know it means maybe less because I have literally nothing to do, but I would have come to Astoria for this, and so I don't know.
Well,
And that is so far for people who don't know. Bushwick to Astoria, that's a whew, the trains are running, that's a hour and a half if they're not running, which they wouldn't be. Maybe a good 3 hours one way.
yeah, it's really long, a really long run. My band rehearses in Bushwick, so I've made that trek before.
Yep.
It's a slog, but I would have come to a story for this in my next press kit. So thank you, Carmen. Um, so last thing I want to ask you is, what is something what's something that you want to create that you haven't made yet? Do you want to do an album soon? Self do self produce a special? What are some goals on the calendar?
Great question. I would love to do an album for sure. I thought about recording one last year. I don't know if I chickened out or it was just like too much. I don't know. I do need to do that. I think I'm afraid of having to. I know you don't have to dump that material, but I feel like I would have to if I was going to go on the road and sell it, because if you're just selling what you just did, then what's the point? Um, I should just do it. A self-produced special. I mean, if Sam Morril can't sell one of the best specials I've seen in years, then like what hope is there for the rest of us? Obviously, I would love to sell, my stuff to someone, but I don't know if I see that happening. I haven't been tapped on the shoulder of the Comedy Central and Netflix people, so I just if it hasn't happened by now, I just don't see it. I know that's like seems kind of like, "Brr, brr," but it's like, they like who they like, and I am not in that group, so I kind of have to figure it out on my own, which is fine because industry is kind of shit, and I don't really want to work for somebody who's stupid.
Totally. And then
Yeah.
and especially now because like you can do so much of it yourself. Like I over the past couple of years I've been accumulating like overhead microphones and like XLR splitters because I want to try to figure out how to do this all myself to do this myself. And
To do
I've
like specials and albums.
yeah, like to see if maybe if I could figure out like how to make one and do it for myself, like on a kind of shoestring budget with what I have. Maybe I could find out what else I need, and I could do it for other people. You know?
That'd be fucking awesome. I've thought about that too. I haven't taken it as far as you have, but I was just like, I should just be the industry that I would want. But I don't know how to do that, you know?
I do, but I'm sure there, and if and not me specifically, but I'm sure there are people around you would that would want to figure it out or would want to help you figure out how to do it. So because we're all trying to make the things we want to see exist, and
Yes.
the industry, we don't need their permission, which I kind of dig. I would love to be on TV
Mhm.
though, if anyone is listening, but but you
Right.
know what I mean.
Yes. Of course, of course. Well, I guess we just started a partnership to uh to get this comedy content from people we like out there.
I I
I
th-
think it's settled.
I think so, Carmen. So when we're allowed to leave our houses again, we'll figure out how to make that happen. Where can people find you on the internet?
Ew, I just fixed my website during quarantine, so big stuff. That's carmenlagala.com. I'm on Twitter at Carmen Lagala. I'm on Instagram at Carmstagrams, and I just joined TikTok. Fuck it, you only live once. Don't find me on there. It's an embarrassing place. So that's where I'm at.
Awesome. So thank you so much again. I'll turn my camera on. We'll kick real quick, and I'll say give you a proper goodbye.
Ew. Oh, I don't know how to. Oh, here we go. Ah, yeah.
Hey,
I started eating a heart cake at the last second, and I feel really bad about it because it's it's very crunchy.
oh don't
I'm
don't
trying not to eat it.
oh no worries at all. Thank you so much, Carmen. Stay safe. All right.
Thank you for asking. You too.
Oh no problem. This was great. All right, folks, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed this podcast and think you know someone who might enjoy it as well, I've got over 140 something episodes at this point for you to pass the time while you're sheltering in place and practicing social distancing. So we are available on Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And thank you, Carmen, for your time and for being on my show. I sincerely appreciate it. And I also want to give a shout out to my supporter on Patreon at the awesome producer level, Mary Beth Mooney. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. If you guys want to check out what I'm doing over on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/awesomedisaster. Check out the stuff that I've got going on over there. And also, I would love to hear from you and read some comments on the show. So if you are a listener, you can tweet to me at Comic Will Carey. I'm also on Instagram, WillCarey23. And I hope you guys are staying well out there. And I will see you guys next time between awesome and disaster. Stay safe, everybody.